Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today we're going to talk about trucking and the impact that it's having on the workforce, but not just the workforce, but the positive impact that it's having on female truckers in their role in the trucking industry. But more importantly, we're going to talk to a beautiful young lady who actually is the driving force of opening doors to this particular occupation. Welcome to the studio, the young lady who made all this possible, Miss Chelsea Faulkner. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
I'm trying to give you the best intro that I possibly can, considering the fact this is our second take because the cameras wasn't rolling.
There's always going to be some kind of a technical difficulty.
Welcome to the show. So tell the viewers a little bit about Chelsea before we get into your impact in changing the world of trucking.
Absolutely. So I'm a mother of three. I have a 15-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old at home. Okay. So full-time mom in full swing. I also am in a director level position for a Class A CDL staffing company.
That sounds great. You shared with me during the pre-interview that this particular occupation or role came accidentally because where you grew up in a little small town and these opportunities wasn't even bought up. Tell the viewers a little bit about where you're from.
Absolutely. So I grew up in small town Attica, Indiana. It's in Fountain County, which is pretty small. You blink and you'll miss it. Okay. The county next to ours just got their first stoplight in the last 20 years. They very promptly took it away. So when I say small town, I mean small town. My graduating class was 52.
52?
Yes.
What's the population? 1,226?
I think it's a little bit bigger than that. Honestly, numbers here most recently, I don't really know. But I know that my children are in school there as of right now, and it's still to that small town community where they know everybody in their class. They know most of those kids' parents. Okay. And my kids can't sneeze outside without me hearing about it. So really? The small town mentality, it sticks.
How did you wind up in this little small town? Because I believe you was actually in Virginia, correct? And then...
Absolutely.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that.
So I was born in Norfolk, Virginia. My dad was actually in the military for several years, and he was stationed in the Navy there out of Virginia. Okay. Back in '96, we packed up one day after he got out of the military, and we moved back to my parents' childhood home, which was back into Fountain County.
That had to be a culture shock to some degree.
It was an absolute culture shock. So being in Virginia, I belonged to the minority whenever I was in my class. I mean, there were people of all different colors, people of all different walks of life. Coming into Fountain County, as far as minority goes, I think I can think of 2 or 3 individuals in my entire high school that belonged to minority. Everything else was pretty well one color.
What goes through your mind at that age and not be 1 minute exposed to diversity and then in the blink of an eye it's not there anymore?
So if we're going to be completely and totally frank, at my 8-year-old self, when I came home after my first day in school, my first question was, where are all the black kids? Because I was so confused. Coming into diversity, I mean, growing up, my best friends in Virginia were not the same color I was. Mm-hmm. So then when I come to Indiana, I'm like, wait a second, what happened and why is this so radically different?
Who did you ask the question to? The teachers, your parents?
That one definitely went to my parents when I got home.
What was their reply?
I honestly don't know that I got a response out of that one. That was probably more of a shock factor.
Really? You appear to cause a lot of shock factors growing up.
That does happen.
What was it like going to school now? You're away from Virginia, but now you're in a small town, Indiana. Everybody knows your name. How do you prepare your life at this moment?
Absolutely. So being in a small town, it more or less felt like there was this box around you. You were allowed to go out, you were allowed to be successful as long as your success story fit within the box. As long as you still maintained the social constraints that you were brought up to have. And as long as you didn't get to be so big that your opinion started to upset the masses.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, you could go out, you could have a voice, as long as your voice coincided with the messaging that was supposed to be going out from the area that you were in.
And what was the message in the area that you were in?
That you were supposed to grow up, you were supposed to behave, you were supposed to start a family, you were supposed to come back home, you were supposed to go to work, provide for that family, and then be back home for the evening to do it again the next day.
You saw this repetitively. When did the light bulbs click in your head saying, this isn't going to be me? Because I already, by sitting here talking to you, I knew that was probably going off by the age of 6 or 7 years old. When did it start to click that you was like, you didn't want this to be you? And how exposed were you to this type of behavior?
Yeah, okay. So whenever I was growing up, my parents both had jobs that they worked, and they pretty consistently stayed within the same kind of fields the entire time I was growing up. Mm-hmm. My mom always worked in an office setting from the time that she went back to work when I was probably in my early teens. And she always worked in bookkeeping and accounting. She had a 9 to 5. She went into work. She did her job. She came home. Mm. My dad was always in a factory setting. He went to work. He did what he did in order to pay the bills. He came home. He rested up for the next day, and away he went to do the same thing over again. So I saw that repetitively growing up. Mm. And I knew that as I was coming up myself, that my expectation was going to be that I was going to need to provide. But I also knew that I had more of a creative side behind me. And I had a lot of things that I wanted to say. Obviously, I'm sitting here. I'm still using my words in some pretty great ways.
Yeah.
And I've always been that person that I've wanted to share my message with the world. When I was in high school, I feel like there was a lot of times when it was kind of dulled down because I was that kid in class that it didn't matter where you moved me in the classroom, I was still going to talk to everybody.
What do you mean they try to dummy it down when you were in school? What was a topic that you would talk about that you can remember that the staff was like, you're going to cause some issues?
More so, not so much to dummy it down, but more so a dull it down. There was a lot of times that I would come in and I would start to talk and I would start to speak, or we would start to go through a lesson and then I would have 11 questions about what was going on because I wanted to understand the deeper meaning behind what was happening and what started it and where did this come from. And I remember growing up, there were a lot of times that I was told that I was talking too much, or I was being too much, or I had too much energy, or I was too bubbly in the morning, and how do you do this, and how much caffeine have you already had?
Right.
So being that person and constantly being told and having that same message of you need to be quiet, you have to stop talking, you're being too much, you have to be just a little bit more reserved, you have to stay small, you have to go back in the box.
Is this the mindset of the counselors in your school? Is this how they treated everybody? Because you said everybody knows everybody's business. So did everybody have to follow the same trajectory?
Everybody did know everybody's business. So it was one of those where, I could get pulled over 3 blocks from my house. My dad knew what I was doing, who I was with, what was going on, and why I was in trouble before I ever got home. Right. As far as the counselors and the teachers, it pretty much was everybody was going to be quiet. However, there were those students that were automatically excelling, and they had some very innate talents that they were born with. Mm-hmm. Some of them were very great at sports. Some of them were really outspoken. I mean, you had those students who were valedictorian, salutatorian of their class, who they were labeled pretty quickly as they could be the next president of the United States. Mm-hmm. So there was favoritism in several different areas given to some of those students because they were going to be the ones that succeeded and got out there and shared their voice. What did your mom and dad say to you as you start to evolve in high school before you wind up going to college? Did they have any input? Did you share your dreams, your goals, your ambitions with them? Because you said that everybody pretty much followed the road of least resistance, so to speak, but you're not a part of that road less traveled. How was they accepting your dreams and goals and aspirations? Absolutely. I can remember coming home several times and spouting off different career opportunities and things that I decided that I wanted to be. I mean, as you're growing up, you've obviously got some different flavors of the week. One week you're going to be great and big and you're going to be famous. The next week you're going to go to school to be this.
Right.
So there was those same things that I came home and I shared with my parents. At one point in time, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I was told, oh, but you're going to have to leave home and go somewhere far away, and your family and your supports are not going to be there.
Okay.
So what do you do then? Okay, so that's not a good idea. Okay. Then I wanted to go and be an attorney. Obviously, I'm very outspoken. I want to argue with everything, so why not go get paid to do it?
Right.
And then I was told, okay, but what happens when you have to represent a murderer or a rapist? Then what are you going to do? Oh, okay, so we don't do that either.
Okay.
So then I decided I wanted to go into hospitality and tourism management because I was going to run a cruise ship.
Okay.
And then I was told that females a lot of times got kidnapped when they started going out to open seas or when they started going out to foreign places. So maybe that wasn't a good idea either. There was a lot of support in my household. Most definitely, they were there for me following my hopes and dreams, but they also had this overbearing sense of you have to make sure that what you're doing is safe. You have to make sure that it's going to be something that's going to fit with what's going on in the world around you, and it has to be something safe.
So they still took you back to the comfort zone. Your dreams always seem to be met with resistance, and the resistance is it's not safe.
Many times, yes. Many times, yes. It wasn't safe, or it was too big, or it was too broad of something. And I mean, I remember going back and speaking with some of my teachers, and I had big hopes and big dreams, and I'm sharing all of these. I'm sharing the things I'd like to do, and they're like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a nice plan.
Right.
And then you get these looks of, that's not ever going to happen.
Really?
And it's more of a what's realistic in those moments. And a lot of it, I feel like it came from a good place.
Right.
I mean, those people wanted to be out there to protect you. They wanted to make sure that you were doing the things where you were going to stay safe. But it also came from a sense of, okay, well, nobody's really shaking the box too much to get out there and go do these things as of yet. And everybody's stayed where they're supposed to be as of right now, and it's working out.
Right.
So maybe we just continue to encourage that behavior.
You pretty much took a job as a social worker. Was it to stay in the safe zone, to start a family, to get married? And if that was, why?
So when social working kind of happened by accident too. A lot of my jobs kind of just happened by accident because of who I was and who I knew.
Okay.
So
There's nothing wrong with that. The world revolves about who you know. Okay.
Absolutely. And I'm fairly decent at making those connections, and they just kind of keep opening doors.
Okay.
But when I first came out of college, I came into a role where I was working in staffing or in the staffing industry. Very much so for the light industrial staffing industry. So your forklift drivers, your welders, your light industrial workers who are doing just general labor things with some of these different factories. And I was the person that would go and find the people to fill those roles. Following that, when I left that job, I was just kind of fishing out in the market trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And one of my friends looks at me and she goes, listen, I think you have the perfect personality to work as a social worker. And I want to open the door for you to look into a career with DCS. So not only was it a social work career, it was one of those that, one, not a lot of people looked upon favorably, because when you're working in child services, that's something that when you show up at somebody's door, they're never happy. They don't want to see you.
Really?
Not only that, the part that I worked in DCS was that I was an assessment worker. So I was that person that was knocking on those doors, sometimes at 3 a.m., sometimes after the cops had already been to your house. And I was that person that was then presented with, okay, now we get to talk about the hard things. We get to have all these hard conversations, and we get to see what we need to do in order to fix the situation to make it safe again. So when you ask if it's something that I did to follow the status quo, absolutely not. When I came home and when I started talking to my parents back in my hometown and saying, listen, this is what I think I'm doing, the look in their eyes was not one of excitement, because that is a dangerous career. That's something that you're going out and you're going into the world, and some of these people are not excited with you at all, and they would wish you harm because you're coming in and you're messing with their family makeup, and you're at some points in times taking their kids.
Were you happy with that job, so to speak? I mean, you are making a difference. You are trying to reevaluate the situation. I get it, how people view it, but I'm pretty sure you took the job knowing or thinking that you was going to make a change, correct?
I did. And in a lot of cases, I did make a change. And
Okay.
a lot of cases, there were instances in which, even if it wasn't something that I brought change to the family's life overall, to where they could be reunited,
Right.
at least at the end of the day, I made a change in the safety level of those children.
Do you feel that as you were sharing this joy of a job and the responsibilities that came along with it, how did it make you feel that every time you would come up with something like that, you was always met with the resistance of, is it safe? It's almost like they're not letting you grow up to experience the world, so to speak. I could be wrong. I'm just asking.
No, there were a lot of times that it was discouraging. And again, looking back at it, I know they were coming from a good place with it. I understand that there were some things out there that I could have done that would have been not safe. There are some career choices that I've made right now that were not safe. I've taken a lot of stabs in the dark, and I've jumped on a lot of things that were kind of in blind faith because I felt a passion for what I was doing, and I thought that I was going on the right trajectory. But there was also a lot of unknown on the other side of that. I mean, what happens if you make a huge career change, you sink all of your coins into it, and then it just completely fails?
You have children.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase this. You have 3 children. You're going through all these different transitions and trying to figure out what makes you happy. Let's call it what it is, what makes you happy. With that said, how did your kids play a role in you trying to navigate mother, wife, and I want to be happy at the same time?
Absolutely. So I have 2 girls and 1 boy. For all 3 of my children, my entire trajectory with what I've been doing with my career, with what I've done with my life so far to date, is to make sure that I am laying the pathway for them. As they grow up, as they decide what they want to be, I want them to know that those doors are open. They have the ability to be whatever they want to be as long as they're willing to put in the work. That being said, they also see the things that I juggle. They see the fact that I have not 1, but 3 of them. Sometimes they all have things going on at one time, and sometimes mom is very overwhelmed. They also see the fact that I have a lot of responsibilities with work, that I'm consistently on the phone with clients, I'm on the phone with my boss, I'm on the phone with my coworkers, I'm on the phone with different people across the industry, and I'm constantly talking to truck drivers. They understand that when that phone rings, it may be a situation that even when we're out in the car, we've got to be quiet so mom can have this conversation, and then we'll go back to our regularly scheduled programming, and we'll get back to what it is that we were doing. So they're seeing the ability that you can be multifaceted, and you have the ability to multitask and do these things if it's what you're really passionate about.
Speaking of truck driving, all of these things that you've gone through only made you stronger for the bigger role in your life, which is what you're doing now. Tell the viewers how that door opened up and what you're doing to make an impact in that particular room.
Absolutely. So again, you remember the conversation we were having about accidentally finding jobs?
Yeah.
This was another one. So
Who opened the door this time?
yes. So one of my coworkers at my first job out of college, the one where I was staffing for light industrial, he was working in the transportation department of that same company, and we got to know each other through that field. He would come into the office maybe once or twice a month. We'd kind of, for lack of a better word, shoot the shit back and forth about what was going on within his side of the industry and my side of the industry. We could see each other in the workplace as far as how we engaged with what was going on with clients and what was going on. And at the end of the day, we part our separate ways. So he's one of those people that I felt like he was a friend in the workplace, but I never really thought a lot of it once I left the workplace. We were friends on Facebook, but aside from that, we kind of went our separate ways. Q2, while I'm working in social work, he reaches out to me one day through social media and says, "Hey, I just started this company. This is what we're doing, and I want you to be a part of it. I need you on my team." I said, "Hey, that's great. I'm pregnant and I need insurance." Oh. So at that point in time, that wasn't something that they were able to offer. So that door closed for a time being.
Right.
I continue on my social work career. I have my third child. At that point in time, I decided that I need to be a stay-at-home mom because daycare is crazy expensive.
Right.
I start a blog while I'm at home so I don't lose all of my hair pulling it out because I'm going crazy without adult interaction. Travel with the blog for a few years with the kids. About the time that my youngest turns 3, I want to say it was 3.5, 4, right around that area. I wake up one day and I'm like, you know what? I love my kids dearly. I do. But if I don't start talking to more adults on a regular basis, I am going to go nuts.
Okay.
So at that point, I reach back out to him and I say, hey, you remember a couple years ago when you said something about me coming to work for your company? He's like, are you ready?
Really?
It's like, yeah. He's like, when can we have coffee? So we go meet for coffee and the rest is kind of written itself.
What did he want you to do? This is a new company. You guys shared views, not so much views about starting the company. You was talking about issues in the workforce on both sides that you guys see. Little did you know he was going to take those concerns and turn them into an occupation for you. When he brought it to you, what did he tell you that you will actually be doing?
Absolutely. So when we started talking initially, he had these grand plans that he was more or less going to make me his right hand. Cue to today, he pretty well has.
Okay.
I came into this industry knowing absolutely nothing about trucking. I always say that when you come into the logistics industry, either you come into it because your family has been here before, you know somebody that's been in it, and you see that opportunity for yourself, or you end up here by accident, and you know nothing of it when you come in.
Right.
I was obviously the latter. I come in, I don't know anything about trucks other than they're big, scary, and can flatten my car.
Okay.
So we come in with that mentality. I start working underneath him, and he starts teaching me the things that he knows about the field. He said, you know, I need somebody to be able to come in to help to grow the business. I know that you have the personality to do it. I know that you have the drive behind it. He starts talking to me a little bit about what the passion is that set the company up. At this point in time, the company's already been around for, I want to say 4.5, 5 years where they're sitting, but they have a huge amount of growth potential. So when he comes in, we start having these conversations. We hit the ground running. I bought in to the idea and the passion behind it. This is all coming in at the same time COVID was coming in, so there was some struggle bus going.
What was the passion behind what he was doing? What was his vision, and that way we can get a clear understanding of what he saw in you and your role. So what was his ambition, and what, you know, he's been up for 5 years. What was his goal here?
Absolutely. So when he started the company, he saw a need, him and his cousin both actually, they both worked in logistics prior to this. They both saw the need for there to be a better connection between drivers and the companies that they work for.
Okay.
Because of the fact, especially in the staffing world, where you come from, a lot of the places where people have just traditionally looked at the bottom dollar. They look at the profitability. They say, oh, we have 20 openings. There's 20 drivers. Do they match? We don't know, but we're going to go ahead and put them in here so we can get that paycheck. They see this happening across the industry. They see all of these square pegs being forced into round holes. These drivers aren't staying. They're not happy. They're leaving. They're upset with the fact that they feel like they were misled. And then these companies are going, well, why did you send me all of these people and none of them worked? So it's affecting everybody's bottom dollar at the end of the day.
Right.
They're looking at things going, there's got to be a better way to have these conversations. We've got to be able to relate to people on a way that is sympathetic, empathetic to what they're looking for, and where they feel like their voices are being heard. So we start having these conversations with drivers. We start having these conversations with clients, finding out exactly what they're looking for, what's working, what's not working. For the drivers, finding out exactly what their needs are. I mean, these are everyday people.
What were 3 of the drivers' needs that you guys felt needed to be addressed first?
Yeah, so when you're speaking to a typical truck driver, there's a lot of different things that are going through their heads as to what they're looking at for a career. One, you've got some drivers that have the ability to get out on the road for weeks on end because they've got the family makeup behind them. Maybe they've got a stay-at-home parent that's allowing them to be out for that amount of time. Maybe they don't have anybody at home, so they're completely happy living on the road. Then you've got these truck drivers who need to be home every day. They have family commitments that are there. Their kids are going to their school activities. They don't want to be missing on that.
Right.
So they're needing those schedules that are more home daily. You need to start accounting for some of that. You have to start accounting for the fact that some of these jobs are more physical than others.
Okay.
So you've got the truck drivers who go out and they hook to the trailer. They pull the trailer from one destination to the next. They drop the trailer, pick the next one up. They don't ever touch the freight that's on that. You've got other drivers who they're going to pick up the trailer. They have to back that trailer to the dock, load everything onto the trailer, take it to the next place they're going to, unload everything from that trailer, reload it with what's next, and off they go. So the physicalities there are completely different. You can't always put a driver who's, ready to be able to lift 50 pounds at a time into a truck where they're not lifting anything, because then they're not happy with life because they've lost all of the physicality in it. In the same way, you can't take a driver that's not ready to be lifting 50 pounds repetitively, put them into those positions where they're touching all that freight, because one, they're not going to be happy with what they're doing. They're going to be miserable because they're going to hurt every day. And two, you're going to end up getting somebody hurt. So you've got to start connecting those dots.
Where does your role come in? Now, they saw something in you, whether it was the energetic personality, what did they see in you, and what was your role now with this company?
So speaking to what they saw in me, I can't tell you honestly, other than they saw somebody who was loud, boisterous, and didn't have the ability to keep her opinions to herself. On the other side of things, I do know that within the role, what I've been able to bring to the company is, one, the ability to listen to those drivers as they're coming in.
Okay.
For several years, I was the last person in the step two before they were submitted on to clients, that I was the one having those conversations with them, making sure that our team had done everything that they needed to make sure that this was a good fit for the driver. Your TV's just went off.
No, it's fine.
I also was that person who was having those conversations with the clients on the other end. I've developed some really good relationships with my clients. One of them has become one of my best friends, just because I have that innate ability to get out and start talking to people and become, really friendly with them and the things that they're saying, because I sit down and I listen to people. And I want to know what their story is. And I want to know how it is that I can actually help them at the end of the day, not just how I can make another dollar off of them.
Now, I noticed something, another reason that you're on the show is you saw a need of concern and a need to address, and that's our female drivers, and to understand their role in the trucking industry, because like we talked about, I'm driving and I see trucks all the time. I never really paid attention to whether or not it was a female or male driver, because I'm thinking this is an industry that's pretty much dominated by the male industry. And thanks for coming on the show and basically educating me on it. And you are a voice or advocate for empowering women to get into this particular field and take up the craft. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So, one, there are a lot more females in the trucking industry than what you'd be led to be. There are a lot more females in the trucking industry than what you would be led to believe.
Okay.
So, especially here within the last couple of years, you've seen the female presence within the industry start to really boom. Because girls out there are realizing, there's more than just the office jobs. There's more than just the factory jobs. There's some different sectors that we can get into that can be really lucrative. I mean, we can jump behind the wheel of a truck and make $1,800 a week. Why are we not doing this? So
it's an 18-wheeler.
True story. There's reasons that I don't drive those 18-wheelers, and those probably relate more so to, not having anger on the road. But for those females that can get out there and do it, they get out there and they do it like a boss. And so you're starting to see more of those women that are transitioning into those roles. They're also coming into the logistics side on the more administrative levels. So you're seeing women that are stepping into those director level roles. You're seeing women who are starting their own trucking companies or taking over their family owned companies who are now a female presence at the head of the company, which is shaking the industry up all the way across the sector, because now you're starting to see more of the input that's coming from the feminine side of things, and we're saying, hey, listen, you have the ability to improve the industry here, here, and here. We've never thought about this before. Why have we never looked at this? And it's kind of a showstopper in some different areas.
How do you see your childhood, your development, as it relates to what you're doing now, which is empowering women to look into this particular field when they probably thought that it wasn't available, they can't do it, they was probably met with the same resistance as you, but clearly that's not the case. How do you see yourself in all this, in the bigger scheme?
Absolutely. So coming up again as a girl, I was met with the same messages of, we've got to do what's safe. We've got to do what's safe. So watching the females who are coming into the industry now, you've heard a lot of them saying the same things, that, one of the biggest concerns being a female out on the road was our safety. Mm-hmm. The truck drivers that are out there, the females that are going, when they first started in the trucking industry, there were not female bathrooms. There were bathrooms that were available for males because males were who drove trucks.
Never thought about that.
The shower facilities, they didn't have them there for females because females weren't driving trucks.
Never thought about that.
So there's been a lot of different things that have been integrated into the logistics industry as a whole that have said, hey, listen, now we've got to come in here and we've got to support these female powerhouses who are jumping behind the wheel. And we've got to make sure that we're making these changes to make sure that they feel safe as well. So this is no longer an industry that we're shutting the doors to women because it's not safe, and instead it's something that we're opening it up because we need drivers and we need their voices at the end of the day so that we know how to better how to better advance the industry as a whole.
Well, not just advance the industry as a whole, but to actually, like you said, to keep empowering individuals and let them know that doors can open. You do have the opportunity to go through and try it. Everybody may not succeed, but at least the door is being there for you to walk through it. How can the viewers be a part of you guys' programming, or if they want to know more information on the trucking industry or know more about your story? And you have a podcast. Let us know about the podcast too.
So the podcast is actually something that's owned by the company as well. It's called Drive. You can find it on any of the major audio podcasting channels that are out there. Mm-hmm. And it's sponsored by Handled Now, which is the company that I work for. So if you have found that and you decide you want to find more, or maybe you aren't in the mood to listen to it yet, but you want to know more about some of the openings that we have, you can definitely visit us at www.handlednow.com in order to find us there. If you're looking for me in particular, again, I started that blog. I've got my brand on the back end.
Okay.
It's called www.thecrazyworkingmom.com.
Okay.
Crazy because I'm still out here juggling all the things.
Right.
And you can find me on social media under any of those tags as well. And the messaging there is very well the same. It's not the trucking industry specified, but it's very much so teaching and empowering other moms like myself to get out into the workforce, to be able to do what they want to do, because there's a lot of those limiting beliefs still out there that you can't do it because you're a woman and you need to be able to prioritize what your needs are. Are you going to have a family, or are you going to have a career? Because you can't have both full force. And I'm here to tell you, yes, you can. You've just got to be willing to put the work in behind it and get over the limiting beliefs that are being preached at you.
Before we wrap up, thank you for coming and providing that information and definitely educating me on something that I see every day, which is our workforce, our drivers out there, and now realizing that a lot of them are now female drivers. It's funny how we do things every day and don't think about the little things, like going to a gas station when you're going out of town and you see the truckers and you see a lot of the bathrooms and stuff, things that I never even thought about,
right,
that you have brought to my attention and brought to our viewers on the Andre The Beast Crayton show. Leave the viewers with something positive, because clearly you have that beast state of mind, from coming from a small town to looking at all the safe zones that people have imposed on you and saying, I'm not going that way, I'm going to go this way. Or I may do this, but you know what? Eventually I know where my destination is. Leave the viewers with something that only you can leave them with.
Absolutely. So as far as that messaging would go, I think what I'd really like to say is that as long as you're willing to put your mind to what you're doing, you have the ability to do anything. Specifically to the moms out there, the working moms out there, because nothing against the stay-at-home moms. You guys are beasts in all of your own roles.
Right.
I could not imagine doing that with the kids and being that full-time. You guys are out there rocking it. But for those working moms out there like myself who are trying to juggle a career, who are trying to juggle those executive level careers with their 50-11 other passions, with motherhood, and making sure that all of those I's are dotted and those T's are crossed, you have to stop letting the voices in your head hold you back. You have to stop letting that inner critic tell you you can't do it, because you have to do, or you have to sacrifice one thing for the other, because that's what you've been told your whole life. You have to realize that you can get past that inner critic. You can rewrite the stories that are in your head, and you can get out there and beast through all of it and sparkles if that's what you so choose, because you have the ability to show up for yourself and be your truest and most authentic self.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.